McCarthy, thank you very much for continuing to do this interview as one of the NCBC past presidents.
You're welcome.
And let me just start by asking you when you joined the bankruptcy court.
I was hired, I joined in January 1990. I was hired as the clerk of court at that time.
So you've not held any other position in the court except clerk?
Right.
All right. When did you join the NCBC?
Well, I can't remember the year, but I think it was probably not long after that I joined up.
Okay. And why did you think it was important to join?
Well, I've always thought that it was important to have an association with, in any organization I'm in, if there's a private association, they can usually do a lot more work as a private association, and I thought it was important to support them in what they did.
What was your perception of the organization at that time?
Well, at that time it was fairly small, and it had not too long before expanded to include deputy clerks, other than just clerks of court. So they were in a growth mode, but it was still relatively small. It was almost as much a social organization as it was anything else, although there was a lot of attempts to try and do more and be more influential.
All right, kind of following up to that, did you perceive its role as being more a representative organization for the clerks and for the deputy clerks, or what did you see its role within the bankruptcy community?
Well, I think definitely it was a representative organization. It was a group of clerks who worked within the system who found it as an outlet for providing a voice where we as individual clerks or employees wouldn't be able to do that.
Now, did you hold any office within the NCBC before you became president?
President-elect. And I was on the board of governors.
Do you remember what years you were?
No, I don't.
Well, why did you decide to run for president-elect?
At the time, we were still a relatively small organization. At that time, and I think still, the presidency is restricted to clerks' offices, and we didn't have a lot of members, a lot of people who were members yet. And so there was just a need for all of us to kind of take a turn and step up.
Looking back to your time as president of the NCBC, what were your thoughts about the organization as it was at that time and what you hope to accomplish as president?
Well, I've done a lot of thinking about that particular question over the last several days, and when I was president, we were really in a transition for all sorts of reasons. The budget pictures weren't very good, and the Federal Judicial Center, who provided a lot of our educational training and seminars, were cutting back because they were losing budget money and they weren't able to provide the kinds of training that when I first became clerk they were able to do. We had a number of innovators in our organization, other presidents and past presidents now, who wanted to see the organization grow and maybe take a greater role in providing those educational opportunities. And we had a change in philosophy at the administrative office in terms of using allocated funds for attending private association educational seminars. All of those things were happening at about the same time. So my role was really kind of as a caretaker, because we were in transition. A number of other people, officers, at the time that I was president, were working on all of those initiatives, trying to get them all in place at the same time that we knew would help the organization grow. So I was really kind of a caretaker between the time where we met in Minneapolis and we had 50 of us all in one conference room about the size of this room. We could all meet in one room, to San Diego, where we first started seeing the growth and having 360 people attend. And I just kind of was there during that transition. So it was really a transitional role for me.
All right. You've mentioned some of the issues that were swirling at that time. Are there any others that you can think of, or would you pinpoint one particular one that the NCBC did a great deal of work on at that time?
We were budget and staffing formulas were still the hot button topics then, and as they are now. How we were going to do the work and continue to do the work. CMECF was just beginning as a brand new product out there. San Diego was just starting to develop that program. So those were the issues that were real hot then.
Well, one question that I did not give you previously, but I'm just curious.
And I don't have to answer it, right?
was there very much communication or collegiality between the NCBC and the FCCA at that time?
There, on the surface, there was. The individuals, we all knew each other and we worked together. There had, prior to my presidency, as I recall, there had been some issues. I wasn't privy to what they were or what was going on. But we held one of the first joint sessions in Washington, D.C., 97, 98, somewhere in there. We held one of the first joint sessions with them at that time. And the issues, it's not so much that the organizations are that there are difficulties or problems in terms of communication. The people that are represented by the organizations and the issues that encompass what those people who belong to those organizations, they're different. And some of them are joint and can be considered jointly in joint sessions on occasion. But for the most part, we just have different sets of goals and where we're going to go.
Well, you've seen now the organization reach its 30th anniversary, and I know there were many times when some of the membership didn't think we'd make it quite that long. But I'd like to get your thoughts on how you see the organization has progressed and what your hopes would be for the future of the NCBC.
Well, the organization itself has obviously become a very strong voice for the bankruptcy community. It's guided by some remarkable people. The big advantage, and we said it this morning in the opening session, the biggest advantage was opening the doors to deputy clerks, because I think the greatest advantage in growth and opportunities that the organization has had is having deputy clerks involved in that process. I've seen some remarkable people, smart, bright, intelligent people who are deputy clerks who've shined in the organization and contributed a great deal of the bankruptcy system. And I think the future of the bankruptcy system is that ability to keep that going. I've always had the philosophy as a clerk that I'm there for no other purpose than to facilitate the people in my office doing a good job. And I think the organization is the embodiment of that philosophy, that we are here to facilitate those people doing the work in the offices to do their job better. And they're well represented, and I would hope that that is the future of NCBC.
Let me ask you this. I think every organization is facing this situation. We've heard it called various things. I'll refer to it as the brain drain, or the baby boomers moving out of the system now within the next few years. Do you see, or would you comment on what, if anything, the NCBC could do to facilitate not keeping those people in the system necessarily, but to keep that store of knowledge within the system?
Well, I think the opportunities are there already. Retirement by those baby boomers, which I'm a member of that generation, doesn't mean that they're not involved in this ongoing organization. But they really kind of, I honestly believe we need to take senior status. We can't, I've seen too many organizations die because the old people won't move on, or won't step aside, or won't get out of the way and let new ideas foster and come to fruition. And while there's a role, perhaps a senior status, a role to keep some contextual traditions alive, I don't think there should be a role for us to continue to be leaders, but to be supportive of those people that are coming up through the ranks. It's ultimately going to benefit them. And I would hope someday things would change. I've heard the same discussions for 20 years about issues that involve the bankruptcy system, and the same solutions, and we go in circles and circles and circles. And that's largely the people in my generation of bankruptcy clerks who've been involved in that. It's always good to get new, fresh ideas and fresh blood to foster some of those new ideas that perhaps give us movement and keep the rest of us around as contextual history. But we need to allow those new ideas to fester to the top, I think.
The bankruptcy community as a whole, and the NCBC is part of that, have been known throughout the court system as the innovators, the leaders, sometimes in technology and personnel management and what have you. And do you see the NCBC continuing to have an important voice in that?
Oh, absolutely. Because they're made up of the people who are the innovators and the thinkers and the people who keep moving forward. We're a system that's challenged by the need to continue to change how we do things to meet the needs of the people that we serve. And the NCBC has become that strong organization that through which a lot of those things can develop. And I think that's going to continue. I don't see how it can't.
Looking forward into the next few years, none of us, of course, have a crystal ball, but what do you see as maybe the issues that are coming to the fore now that the NCBC will be instrumental in working?
My own personal sense is that we need to find a way to do our work a little bit differently to better deal with the volatility of our filings. We have tried, the NCBC has tried, and the Bankruptcy Clerks Advisory Group and the Administrative Office have all tried to come up with formulas and other methods of dealing with the volatility of our filings. And nothing is going to deal with the volatility of filings. Filings are going to be volatile in the bankruptcy system. It's the way the code is written. What we need to do, we've tweaked the formulas about as much as they can be tweaked, or as much as they're going to be allowed to be tweaked. We probably need to be a little bit more innovative in terms of figuring out how it is we do our work. And all sorts of possibilities exist out there, and I think the NCBC can be the lead on that. Whether it's more work sharing, more resource sharing across district lines, or something like that. It's that kind of innovation and outside the box thinking that's going to move the system forward, and that's going to have to come from NCBC.
All right. Any last words of wisdom that you would like to give us going forward?
I don't pretend to have any words of wisdom for anybody at any time. My children tell me repeatedly I don't have any, and I tend to believe it.
Well, thank you very much for the time that you spent as president of